This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone and welcome to the final round of RaceBot TV Primetime, at least this edition in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. I am Connie Maddock and as ever I'm joined by Paul Smith. We're going TCR action once again, this time at one of the Australian racing circuits here on iRacing. It's a lovely day out there, more on that in a minute, but Paul, this should be setting up for a decent finale for the season.
Yeah, it should be an absolute cracker, this one, and one of my favourite circuits to watch racing on as well, as we always get fantastic action around here, and certainly should be good racing, but it'll be tough out there today.
Yeah, it's going to be tough out there because of, well, a couple of reasons. TCR racing is always tough anyway, but that track temperature sitting at 50 degrees Celsius right now, that is absolutely scorching, so that track is baking inside the Australian sun right now. I'm just going to see if we can get an onboard there. And this is going to be with Jack Sedgwick as he's currently heading his way through the final corner of the lap. And Paul, you have his onboard for this one.
I will do when I find Jack Sedgwick on our timing screen. But yeah, it's here we are. There we go. We'll go on board with him there. Down into turn one there. Finally got on board with him. Tricky corner. You want to carry the speed through here. Don't run too far out wide. Hug the inside a little bit. Some people like to V off this corner through the left-hander. Onto the power once again. Up over the curb on the outside. Quick left-hander here as we're heading in towards Honda Hairpin. Try and keep this car over to the left-hand side. This is one of the favourite overtaking opportunities. Down into the braking zone. Rear will not want to cooperate at this stage with colder rear tyres. Into Siberia, 4th gear corner. Through the left, you want a late apex, get on the power nice and early. Out there, up over the curb, through the S's here. Jack chooses to take the curb. Some people don't like to take the curb because it can unsettle the car. Lucky Heights is the next one. Nice wide entry onto the brakes as straight as possible. Up over the crest here on a bit of a plateau. Then plunge downhill, braking hard into MG, the right hand hairpin. On the power again. Penultimate corner, you've got to feather your throttle through here. Be careful with it. Then get on the power. Up over the curb on the right. Final corner, again it's a corner, you got to feather, get on the power if you're confident with this car and have got a good setup, up over the curb there, and that is a lap around Phillip Island on board with Jack Sedgwick.
Yeah, of course, Jack Sedgwick getting himself up into P3 with that particular qualifying lap. He's about 2 and a bit tenths of a second behind Thomas Gibson, who is currently provisional pole position at the moment. Cohen Klopman is still out there right now looking to get his lap time set, but I believe he has set both of his qualifying times. Yes, he has. So Cohen Klopman won't improve position. Someone who will, though, is Artem Grabo, though. He gets himself up into P5 on the starting grid here today. You see Vasily Zaitsev there, who has yet to set a qualifying time here. And, well, with only a minute and a half left in the session, it's going to be, well,
this is
a last-ditch effort.
Yeah, this is his last chance. And this is all that he could do here then, hoping to just try and get a lap time in. Car number 5, so he's quite high up on the iRacing here in this field. Across the line then, a 1:38.492. That puts him in 6th place.
Pretty good position on the starting grid for the driver of the number 5. We're just waiting for maybe a couple more cars to head their way through. Just a minute left in the session here, and I don't really think anyone else is going to come across the line. We see Valentinas Masakovas there head his way across the line, but that is going to be it in terms of qualifying. Everyone getting their laps done. And here is your starting grid for the final round of the official IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge iRacing season. Thomas Gibson is in pole position with Cohen Klopman also on that front row. Jack Sedgwick will start in P3. Ale Cooper Lopez, your current, well, championship winner, we can call it at right now in terms of the iRacing point standings. He starts in P4. Artem Grabo in P5 with Vasily Zaitsev in P6. Juan Dalmasas Torres in P7, Lucas Navarrete, P number 8 here today to start. Valentinas Masangovas in P9, Marcos Vera in P10, Coldo Gonzalez Gomez, P11 for him, Aitor Kagaid there in P12, Juan Prada Jr., P13 to start here. Dario Morales Brito starts in P14, Daniel Moof starts 15th, and Christopher Modiano in 16th. Adam McNally will start in 17th place here today, joining Juan Pablo Tanoni at that final row of the grid. But as these drivers form up on that starting grid, we have a full pace lap here, so drivers can get themselves those tyre temperatures back up, and it's going to be a fairly interesting race here today, considering that this track is very high. In the nature that it is right now, it's very high tire degradation that you tend to get here, and the temperature of the circuit is certainly not going to help that.
Yeah, I've just put a nice big yellow box around the track temperature right there. 49 degrees Celsius, 121 Fahrenheit, if you're still using that as your unit of measurement. Clear skies. Now, this track, as you can see on the track map to the left of the screen there, you've got lots of long left-hand corners. With this front-wheel drive car, even though it does have a limited slip differential, it will struggle around those left-handers towards the end of the race here, because with those track temperatures, that front right is going to get very hot and start producing some understeer, surprisingly, in a front-wheel drive car.
Yeah, it's one of those things that these drivers are really going to have to deal with throughout this race. It's going to reward those drivers that can save their tyres a lot more than perhaps some other races, as the drivers currently rolling their way off the grid. They're heading their way through the first sector right now, and well, these two sweepers right at the start of lap, turn 1 and then into towards turn 2, very, very long, very wide radius corners, but into turn 1 you can certainly do moves actually around the outside there.
I'll be honest, I was racing in a few races last night in a league around this track, and I pulled off moves around the outside into turn 1 in all 3 races, so it is very much doable. And it makes it a lot more difficult to defend as well into turn 1, because naturally, or more traditionally, you would want to defend the inside line into 1, but because it's cambered slightly as that turn 1, you can carry the speed around the outside, and it's a great overtaking opportunity, because then you have the inside line for turn 2.
Yep, you do, and then you can look to capitalize on that coming off the corner, and then you get through towards, well, the start of the second sector, which is much slower speed. You have a big braking zone in towards turn 4 of Honda, and then you can follow that through all the way through turn 6 of Siberia before you climb up the hill a little bit towards Lukey Heights. So there's overtaking opportunities down there. And of course, coming up towards Lukey Heights, you then have that awkward downhill braking zone into turn 10, which can be sketchy at the best of times, and even more sketchy when you have a lot of cars in close quarters action.
Yeah, one thing I have noticed here on this parade lap, as I'll call it, because the drivers want to keep his tyres as cool as possible, apart from Colin Klopman, who's been working his front tyres a lot here on this out lap here, so interested to see how the start of his race goes and how it goes towards the end of the race here.
Yeah, absolutely, but now coming through those final 2 corners, there's the pit lane entry, pace car is on it, final corner. Field going to be under the control of Thomas Gibson in that Core Sim racing car on the outside line. He decides to go now. We'll get this final race of the season started. Round 12 at Phillip Island for the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge is a go. Thomas Gibson gets away well, but it's a big battle for P2 on the circuit between Jack Sedgwick and Cohen Klopman there, as Klopman just slides back but into P3 there, all single file for the southern loop. In the vast majority of your front position, still a little bit of dueling in the mid-pack though as they work their way through there, but it seems to be a very clean start from everyone involved, as there's still a challenge going on for P3 out there on circuit, as that is currently the drivers of Cooper Lopez getting himself involved and getting himself the position up into P3.
Oh, we had a bit of an incident at the hairpin. Oh, big contact there. Medanio was involved in that one. Juan Parada Jr. was the one who went flying across the grass, and Adam McNally has dropped to the back here, so too has Kagido as well, so not a good start for those guys as they head into that hairpin.
One big beneficiary of this start, though, is Dario Brito down in P number 10. He's actually gained, well, what was briefly 4 positions is currently 3 positions on the start right now, so he's gone very well. Someone who's had an absolutely horrible start, though, is Cohen Klopman. He started on that front row of the grid, but he's been cycled all the way back here into 4th place, so yes, he's had an absolutely horrible start here, and those front 3 now are starting to try to break away.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to do here. So they're trying to get away from the guys, and they're trying to make these moves. And speaking of making moves, Cooper Lopez, he wants to try and make moves on Jack Sedgwick into turn 1. Go through turn 1 into 2. And well, you see, you've got to be patient here. Mm-hmm. You really have to be patient on the throttle. And that's exactly what he's done there as Adair. Of course, he is the champion here, it's safe to say, for the overall standings in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, the first season of this championship here on iRacing. And these 3 just working together at the moment. They've got about, actually Colin Klopman has caught that gap up once again. He's brought Torres, he's brought Gabo, he's got Zaitsev basically down to 9th place in a queue here.
Yeah, it's all one big train at the front of the field, currently led by the Core Sim racing car of Thomas Gibson. But you see that SimiCube NX car of Jack Sedgwick, currently second in line as well, trying to keep hot on the heels of Gibson as they whip their way down the hill in towards turn number 10. It was a brief little getaway for the front three right at the end of the first lap there, but the draft has just meant that the cars behind were able to pretty easily catch all the way back up. And now you can see coming through that final corner, as you said, feather the throttle very carefully, coming through some of these high-speed corners. Can't take them flat out by any means. But as you can see now, the drafting train heads its way down the pit straight. Cooper Lopez might be setting up the move for P2 here. He's getting very, very close in the draft, but he will remain in line for now. But everyone taking it rather calm, cool, and collected here in the early stages, which is what we're not used to seeing in TCR cars.
If you think back to Road America, when that was a very heavy draft track, and even Monza as well, everyone was patient in that until the last, say, 10 minutes or so of the race. So I think we're going to see a little bit of that here today as well in this race. Cooper Lopez isn't being patient though. He's going to the inside of Sedgwick. He's got the inside. The trouble here is that Sedgwick's going to get the power earlier, and he's got the inside line for Siberia. So it is a favourite overtaking spot for people, is the hairpin at Honda, but that car on the outside, it's not a lost cause there because you've got that left-hander at Siberia straight away.
Just as we were talking about things being pretty calm, Cooper Lopez decides to go for a bit of a send on Jack Sedgwick, but Sedgwick able to hold strong for now for the reasons that you've mentioned through Lukey Heights. As you can see, there's a battle going on behind as well. Klopman coming under threat from Dalmacis Torres. And Klopman had to go very defensive there on the inside into turn 10. And now Artem Grabo is looking to get himself involved as well, because Torres slowed himself up way too much attempting to go for that move, and now started to come under threat behind.
Yeah, that's again, at that hairpin down at MG, you can throw it up the inside, but immediately you've got a left-hander on the exit of it. So yeah, traditionally you want to go for the inside, but sometimes the outside is actually the better line. So it's a tricky track to one, defend at, and two, attack at.
Yeah, very difficult. And right now you can see, as a result of Koen Klopman having to defend position, he has lost a little bit of time to the leading three, but if history is anything to go by, then that draft will still be strong enough so that he is able to catch back up. Oh, Dalmacis Torres, he's pushed a little bit wide there coming through the southern loop. We see Juan Prada Jr. having a problem as well, but there we go. There's the pass done. Artem Grabo has been able to get himself by Dalmacis Torres. Dalmacis Torres, big wide line into Honda corner, trying to get the speed off, and will not quite be successful in doing so. Here comes the send down the inside, though. Dalmacis Torres trying to wrestle the position and back away, but Grabo has that covered.
That doesn't work at that corner, my friend. It really does not into Siberia. It's not a slow enough corner for you to throw the car in like that at the apex, because the car in front is just going to be able to stay in front of you, and it's showing right now. One little mistake there, and that costs you a little bit of time and a position if your name is Torres. But through MG once again, I was just showing Parada Jr., who was having a bit of a battle with Vera, but behind as well, Adam McNally and also Tanoni, who started this race on the back row, they're battling out for 14th as well. So there's battles throughout the field, but it's at the front of your field where you've got a really close battle.
Yeah, you just have the one retirement so far this race. That's Coldo Gomez, who's currently parked on the pit lane, so he will finish dead last. But here comes the challenge for the race lead. Then Jack Sedgwick down the inside of Gibson, coming through turn 1. The advantage will switch back to that Corse M racing car of Gibson as he works his way through. Here comes Cooper Lopez, looking to try and get himself involved as well, but they will all remain in the status quo right now as Jack Sedgwick, he had a big opportunity. He might still have one. Here comes the move. Inside line for Honda. Is he going to go deep on the brakes? He has to try and get this move done. Slots himself inside, but he can't complete the move by the exit of the corner. Now Cooper Lopez has got his car in the gap as well, so Gibson has to be so careful here. It won't quite. Oh, he does wrestle the line away, wrestle the inside line away from for Siberia. Gibson, it does end up dropping position though, but they're still all stacked up, nose to tail. Cooper Lopez basically riding the back bumper of Gibson
as they go through the S's then up into Lukey Heights. And I'll tell you what, This is great racing between the front four. They've managed to just pull away. 1.2 seconds. Gibson with the big dive down the inside on the braking zone of MG. Back to the front of the field. Cobo Lopez now trying to go around the outside of the penultimate corner. And Cedric, he won't have anything of that at all, but it's Gibson at the front. Cedric now trying to slip into the slipstream. I'll get there eventually. And as the three of them behind Thomas Gibson, all in a line there. Cobo Lopez looking one way. Cedric looking to the inside now, down the inside of turn one. But again, Gibson able to hold that outside line, as I mentioned in the before the start of the race, and that means he's got the inside line for turn two. He should keep on to the lead, and here comes Cobo Lopez now.
Cobo Lopez is being an absolute rat right now as he's trying to stick his nose in all the places where it perhaps doesn't belong. Here comes Klopman then, trying to capitalize on that fact. He'll bring it side by side with Cobo Lopez into Honda corner. It's side by side amongst all of your podium runners right now as they hit the braking zone through the right. Klopman still trying around the outside of Cobo Lopez, but he'll have to slot in behind as well. Fantastic battling, fantastic racecraft between all four of these drivers.
And if you notice, they had like a 1.6 second lead between the front four, as Cedric now making the move on Gibson here. We're only 10 minutes into this race. I know it's the final week of Friday prime time and they want to give us a show, but this is fantastic. This is brilliant stuff. And well, I mentioned they had about a 1.6 second gap between fourth and fifth. Well, look at it now. It's a queue of traffic down to ninth place, with 10th getting ever so closer.
Yeah, so all this battling right at the front of the field has really bunched everyone else up behind. The fastest man on circuit last time around was that car fourth in line, though, Cohen Klopman. But as you can see, rounding themselves around the final corner. It's an absolute drafting train all the way down the pit straight for the top 9, almost top 10 cars right now. So that early breakaway is just being gobbled up by all of these cars behind. We won't be seen side by side this time into turn 1, but I wouldn't put it past these guys to have another little bit of a go at it in a couple of moments' time, especially since Cobo Lopez is defending pretty heavily from Klopman.
I tell you what, I really hope that Thomas Gibson has put a little bit of extra fuel in for this race, because I don't want him to have enough for a Monza round, because he would deserve to be up at the front and to get the win here, because if you were here earlier in the season for Monza, in fact, forget that, because Jack Cedric down the inside, not quite there yet, but he's showing his intent, and the rest of the field running behind them at the moment. It's fantastic, this.
Yeah, this is why we decided, or part of the reason why we decided to bring you this season of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, because TCR racing is absolutely bonkers. I hope that this can become a regular thing on Racesport TV, and we keep this as Friday primetime just for ever, I guess, at this point.
Well,
but,
I'd be happy with that.
I'd definitely be happy with that as well, with the amount of crazy racing that's going on. But right now, these guys, of course, they have about 18 and a half minutes of this to go. This must be absolutely just fatiguing. They must be knackered after this.
It's hard work, especially around this track, because you are having to be so patient with your throttle through so many of these corners. Cohen Klopman, by the way, sat there in P4. I think he's decided, you know what, let's just sit here, let's look after the tyres, because this could be a race about who looks after the tyres the best here. We mentioned about that track temperature at the start of this race. It is now got down to 118 degrees Fahrenheit, so it has dropped down about 3 degrees Fahrenheit in this race so far. So definitely these drivers are going through a bit of tyre wear here in this race.
Yeah, those cars will just get slower and slower. Cedric's showing the nose on your race leader into Honda, but not close enough to be able to make the big commitment just yet, as these guys just calm down just a little bit after the past couple of laps that we've had. They realize if they battle like that for about 15 minutes, then eventually something might happen between these cars. Hopefully not, because we want to see racing like this all the way to the end. But I think for drivers, they had their little bit of fun, and maybe, just maybe, now they're thinking about the longer term.
Yeah, it's. I think people have realised that, well, whoever whoever makes a mistake, whoever works their tyres too hard too soon, it is really going to be the one that loses out in this race. And really, you don't want to be at the front of that pack either. Well, you do and you don't. You do want to be at the front because that's the best place that you want to be in a race, but it leaves you open to attack, especially down this straight, this long pit straight here. The slipstream being so vital around this track that you don't want to be punching a hole in the air for everybody else for so long in this race, as we found out at Monza.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you start, well, at least at Monza, we had a couple of fuel issues, but meanwhile, there's a bit of side-by-side going on in the background because that's Brito currently involved there, and he works his way through on Masenkovas there, as they had a little bit of a side-by-side fight coming into the first couple of corners of the lap. So it's not just these guys at the very front deciding to fight, it's the mid-pack, it's towards the rear end of the field as well. So everywhere you look, cars are very, very close together.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Juan Parada Jr., Daniel Muth as well. These were drivers who were involved in that incident on lap 1 at this very corner, in fact, and Vera as well. Another driver who got caught up in that. So 3 of them together here. They're still having a fun race here, even though it's 11th, 12th and 13th. And behind them as well, more action because Modiano, Tononi and Gajide all battling it out through Siberia.
Yeah, this is towards the very rear of your field, as Tononi currently at the head of that one. It's Modino versus Kagide that are going side by side up the hill towards Lukey Heights, and Modiano actually getting up over the curb into the dirt as well, so he's going to have to drop behind in that situation. But this is for basically the last couple of positions, you know, on the track. We have Adam McNally, who's I think had a couple of issues, who's currently 10 seconds off of these guys, and he's currently the last of the runners. But yeah, just everywhere you look, there seems to be battling out there. But returning back to the front of the field, you can see Gibson leads from Cedric, from Koba Lopez, from Koen Klotman. That's the state of play inside your top 4. Artem Grabo, though, he's starting to lose touch with these leading 4 cars. You can see the top 8 up on your screen. Dalmasas Torres, Zaitsev, and Navarrete will round out that particular top 8. But right now, as a result of these guys taking it a little bit calmer and not going side by side every corner, it's the top 4 that's been able to break away.
Yeah, and that I think that's somebody's taken a sensible pill here, and it's basically they've decided, you know what, really, let's not be silly here. It's still, we're at the halfway point of the race. Let's, you know, just work together. Let's pull away. And we can have our own little gaggle of cars here at the front. So that's what's happening right now. Klotman, by the way, he's been swapping times with Koba Lopez here, and that's because he's just sat behind. He's not really he's not pushing the you know, he's not really pushing the agenda in this one.
No, he's not. He's sitting relatively close, but he's not been, you know, going for every single move in the universe that presents itself, excuse me. But this is following very, very closely through that final corner, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does actually go for the move into turn 1 this time around, because if you're this close, then perhaps why not go for it? Koba Lopez immediately going to go defensive to the inside of turn number 1. And so you can see Klotman, there we go, he's through. And that was Koba Lopez actually just letting him through. He lifted off the throttle and let the RevMatch Esports car go.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, you called it there. He decided not to fight that too hard. Let Koen Klotman go through. But it has cost them about a second to your race leaders. They've pulled that little bit of a gap out of Cedric and Gibson now. So they're in that management phase of the race at the moment here. As we mentioned, that little bit of time management going on here, because with those track temperatures that we mentioned earlier, yes, it is getting a little bit cooler throughout this race, but that's still going to affect your grip and the tyre longevity around here, especially with so many long left-hand corners that really work. That the front right corner of the car really does take an absolute hammering, and the tyre temperatures at the end of a race are through the roof on that corner, especially with track temperature, as we've seen.
Yeah, so, you know, by default, you have more wear on the front tires, you know, due to it being a front-wheel drive car, and, you know, having these long radius left-handers like you talk about, certainly not helping things when it comes to keeping those front tire temps and the front wear in check on these cars. But you can see the top two currently trying to get away from P3 and P4 right now. So I think what Klopman and Copa Lopez might have to do here is just work together, perhaps just try and slingshot each other off of each other to try and get back up into the top two. Copa Lopez won't be in a position to do it this time into turn 1. But he's just sitting inside of Klopman's draft right now. Klopman, he's currently, well, he's set a 139.4 on that last lap. Meanwhile, your top two were both 138.8. So that's how much faster those guys are going. Meanwhile, Vasily Zaitsev trying to work his way through on what is going to be Navarrete there. So Navarrete in that MSI Esports car just gonna have to fall behind as the Central and Eastern European driver works his way through up into P7. Is Navarrete going to come back at him? It looks like it's going to be the case. Down in towards Honda corner, but Zaitsev is able to hold strong coming through there. No opportunity for Navarrete to work his way through.
Yeah, he just didn't quite get enough alongside there, and Brito behind is sort of hanging there with these guys in this little bit of a battle. Front two, by the way, 2.2 seconds they've pulled away. Cohen Klopman, I feel right now, is slowing down Coba Lopez, and I wonder if it's because we saw him really working his front tyres on the warm-up lap in this race, whereas you saw Thomas Gibson and everywhere else just rolling around, not putting any energy into those tyres. And I just feel that Klopman has worked his front tyres, especially that front right, a little bit too hard too early in this race, and it's costing him. I mean, you compare, his fastest lap was a 38.0. We'll see it come across the line here just to see what the best and what the last laps were, but across the line there, you look at that, a 39.6. It's 1.6 seconds slower than his best lap now.
Yeah, and it's about 6-7 tenths of a second slower than P1 and P2 are running right now. So looks like Klopman's taken a lot out of his tyres. So has Copa Lopez in this situation. They set very, very quick best laps. Meanwhile, the best laps of Thomas Gibson, well, that currently sits at a 38.2, so that's like 2.5 tenths of a second slower than Klopman's fastest lap, so he's been taking it easy. Granted, he hasn't had the draft for quite a while, being at the front of the field, but yeah, it seems like these two guys at the very front have kept their tyre life in check despite being involved in all of that battling, and the others have just taken a little bit too much life out.
Well, that's it. You look at that. Thomas Gibson has only lost 8 tenths of a second compared to his fastest lap compared to his last lap. Jack Sedgwick about a second. You know, you compare that to Cohen Klopman and Copa Lopez, you see that big drop off between those two with the tyre life. But now we're into the final third of the race here. 9 minutes just under remaining here. Plenty of opportunities for these front two to have battles. I don't expect to see Sedgwick go for it too early because he won't want to give the draft to Thomas Gibson towards the final 2 laps of the race here. So I think he'll perhaps wait for his opportunity, but if an opportunity does arise, he'll certainly take it. In fact, is he going for it into turn 1?
I mean, he certainly has the run, and he does go for it. Battle for the race lead, then Sedgwick down the inside of Gibson as those two will work their way through turn 1 into the southern loop. Turn 2, you can see Sedgwick trying to carry all the speed possible around the outside, but Gibson's just going to squeak ahead and keep position. But Sedgwick, he's still riding on the back bumper of the fellow Audi in front of him. Does he decide to go for a dive into Honda? Looks like he is going to. So another inside line attempted move for Sedgwick as he dives himself down in, as Gibson's pushed actually a little bit wide. He'll have a little bit more speed off the corner to be able to challenge into Siberia. Trying around the outside here is Thomas Gibson, but not going to find much success there. Gets a run off the corner, looks for a move on the curb, but he has to drop back behind as they start to climb the hill in the middle of the lap.
Yes, Jack Sedgwick just squeezing Thomas Gibson right out. Gibson's going to show his nose, though. He's going to give it all he can here as they go through Lukey Heights again. But, yeah, Jack Sedgwick using a little bit of experience there from battling side by side with cars to be able to push and try and get through. As there's Gibson. That's the wrong place to look, Thomas. You really don't want to look there because it compromises your exit through that penultimate corner, and you can see that gap that created there just by making that little bit of a lunge down the inside.
Yeah, so that's a very momentum-based and line-based, last sector there. You need to get it absolutely pitch perfect so you can have the speed down the straight. But here comes, almost a big dive from Gibson into turn one. I feel like Crofty right now saying, he's going to go for the move. Oh, no, he isn't. That's a Crofty thing, right?
Yes, it is a Crofty thing, that certainly. As they're heading in to the Southern Loop, and well, it's fantastic racing. We're into the final 6.5 minutes of this season for us here on Friday Prime Time. Of course, if you do want to give this series a go, there's races going on all the time, and Sedgwick having to defend there into Honda Hairpin. We were looking at Klopman and Coba Lopez as well, because they're pretty close together as well. So it's fantastic racing. If you've got the car and if you've got the circuit, get yourselves into the races, because it's fantastic racing in this car.
Yeah, it is brilliant racing indeed, and we might have a brilliant race on for P1. Here's another attempt. Gibson tried to wrestle the race lead back away after it was taken from him on the previous lap, but he's just going to have to fall behind. It was a big look into Lukey Heights that time around, into turn 10. Late apex from both cars coming through that corner, as now into that penultimate corner. Slightly different lines being taken by both cars, as Gibson now, he's going to have a little bit of better run than last time through these last couple of corners, because he hasn't gone for a lunge through it this time. So he might just be able to get that slipstream into turn one, but we're starting to run out of time and we're starting to run out of laps to make this one work.
Yeah, here comes the slipstream now for Gibson. He's got that draft. Will he get the move? He's looking to the inside, but we've seen how he can, and he knows that you can hold it around the outside, and that's exactly what Sedgwick has done right there. So Jack holding his own at the front at the moment as they're going through the Southern Loop. But yeah, this is, I tell you what, this is really going to come to a head, and hopefully we have a nice clean finish towards the end of this one. But you never know, really.
You never know. Of course, Gibson had another big look into the first two corners of this lap, but still not able to find the weakness as far as that Simucuban X Racing driver of Sedgwick is ahead of him. Again, I'm fearing they just pushed a little bit wide there coming through Siberia, but they're both able to recover it pretty well as they climb the hill once again. Well, if we look at the timing, we can see that, after these guys come to the start-finish line, it'll be around about 3 laps to go to sort out the differences between these two drivers. Gibson might have a big look into turn 10. It actually forces Sedgwick to go very defensive into there, just hogging that inside line. So that option wasn't there for Gibson, but you can just see how much respect is being given to these two drivers and how good their racecraft is.
And that's a key point that you make right there. There's respect between these two. They are two of the finest drivers in this car right here that you're watching as they come across the line. Don't forget Colin Klopman and Acopa Lopez as well. They're involved in a close battle. And then you've got a trainer cars from 5th down to 9th as well. 5 cars all in a slipstream train. So we'll be keeping an eye on those throughout the final 3 minutes or so, because there's action all the way through the field here.
There is, but, everyone wants to know who's going to come out on top. Jack Sedgwick or Thomas Gibson. That is the big battle at the front of the field. Over the past couple of races, Thomas Gibson has come away with pretty comfortable race wins, but this time around he has a big challenger in the form of Jack Sedgwick. You see Klopman and Copa Lopez going side by side in the background, though. Cohen Klopman able to solidify his position ahead there of that black and gold car. So That's going to be good for him. He still lost 1 position on his qualifying, though. He did start on the front row, just simply not able to hold it. Burrito having a look around the outside of Zaitsev as well, inside of that big old top 5 train. But back to your race leading pair, perhaps, as those guys, Cedric and Gibson, you know, you had to think there's going to be another spark at some point to light the fire.
Well, I mean, there's 2 minutes to go, so we've definitely got 2 laps remaining here as they come across the line. And, well, these two, they're going to give it absolutely everything. And I think it's now that Gibson needs to start making the move and pressing it home and trying to make it count. Here we go. Turn 1. Is this the time?
Is it the time? Gibson down the inside, but Cedric, he's held it around the outside so many times. Can he do it again on the penultimate lap? That is the question. Gibson, try as he might around the outside of the southern loop, might even give him a bit of a shove to the rear end coming off the corner, just letting him know he really, really wants to take this race win. And now looks to angle for the move, coming through that left-hand kink and into the braking zone of Honda. This time Gibson tries around the outside here. If he's able to hold it, he has the inside for Siberia, but just doesn't make up enough ground there, coming through the middle. And now he's gonna have to stay second in line. 1.5 laps to go. I still don't know who's going to come out on top on this one, but I think the edge still lies with Jack.
I tell you what, Koba Lopez has made his way past Klotman, and I think they've had a little bit of an instant between the two of them. Let's just have a look back, see what's happened here. Very briefly between the two of these. So Koba Lopez, oh, he got into the back of Klotman. Ooh. Oh, that's Klotman won't be happy with that. And, well, he's now got that queue of 5 cars behind him here. So, big bump. And he's certainly run away, has Adacopa Lopez. But here we go then. Start of your final lap.
White flag going to be out there on circuit this time around. It's going to be about 12 seconds as they head their way across the line. You can see that Cedric went all the way to the pit wall to try and break the draft. Gibson, what does he do this time around? It's again another attempted move down the inside, but this hasn't worked on so many occasions. Looks like Cedric can hold strong coming in towards turn 2. Gibson, can he try something a little different through turn 2? Doesn't look like, as he'll lose ground off the corner. And he's dropped back another 10th, so maybe that move into Honda corner is not going to happen unless he goes for the almighty dive. Cedric in prime position to be able to take this race win away, but nothing is guaranteed as long as Gibson's in those wing mirrors as he tries to find an outside move coming through Honda corner. Not going to be successful again. Cedric has been absolutely stellar on this defense so far, coming up to about half a lap to go. Still no way through for Gibson as they try to climb the hill once again through the S's section, and Gibson lost another bit of ground there, but that draft will suck him right back up, so he might have another look maybe into turn 10. You can see how deeply he dives it coming through the left-hander of Lukey Heights, but it's a couple of car lengths too much perhaps. You can see him send it down the inside, or at least attempt to, but I think that might have just sealed his fate here unless Jack Cedric makes a mistake through these final couple of corners. Up to the final one then, and what a drive for Jack Cedric. Threatened all the way, battling all the way, but out of the final corner, round 12, final round of the season. It's Simucuban X Racing and Jack Cedric taking the race wing.
Wow, what a race between the those two, as the rest of your field come across the line then. Interested to point out that Torres made it ahead of Colin Klotman on that final lap, but couldn't bring that to you, unfortunately, because we were focusing so much on your race lead battle. Moof and Parada Jr., they were pretty close across the line as well. Modiano and Tononi, they're about half a second between them, but I tell you what a drive, what a race that was from your front two.
Yeah, that was brilliant stuff to watch. You know, we had that battle pack of 4 or 5 cars very early on in the race, but it became a 2-horse race at the end between Gibson and Sedgwick, and they gave us a bit of a show indeed, but Sedgwick just too strong on the defense. Gibson not able to find any way by. And of course, later on in that race, everyone had screaming hot tires, and it's so difficult with the grip to try and make passes at that late stage. Gibson, though, he gave it his best shot, but Sedgwick just still that one level above. Here are your official race results. 0.3 of a second between P1 and P2. Jack Sedgwick wins from Thomas Gibson. It's an all-British first 2 steps of the podium at least. Adi Copa-Lopez comes home in that final podium spot. Dom Torres in P4. Cohen Klopman, after a late incident with Copa-Lopez, drops back into that 5th place. Artem Grabo P6. Lucas Navarrete P7. Yasvili Zaitsev in P8, Dario Brito in P9, and Valentinas Marcinkovas rounds out your top 10 here today. Daniel Moof, Juan Prado Jr., Marcos Vera, Aitor Kagaid, you have Cristia Modiano, Juan Pablo Talnoni, Adam McNally, and Coldo Gomez rounding out your 18 car finishing results. But with that frantic action all over and done with, we're just going to go to a quick break here, but don't go away because we have the post-race show coming up just after this. Hello everyone and welcome back to the post-race show here on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. That is going to be it in terms of this season's edition of RaceSpot TV Primetime. We had an exciting 12 rounds of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and like I said during the race, if I were able to make the decision, I would have this series every single season, but that decision is not in my hands, unfortunately. You can see the recap of the race results there. I'm Connery Maddock, I'm joined by Paul Smith, and just recapping the entire season right now, it's just been one of the most fun seasons I've ever commentated on.
Oh, absolutely. It's been fantastic, and credit to the drivers out there as well. You know, that not every one of them is a World Championship driver. We've seen some names that we don't normally see on these broadcasts as well, especially from a lot of the leagues and the World Championship Series. So it's great to see different drivers coming in and performing at the top level here. So absolutely fantastic stuff, and I will say my favourite round of the championship was Road America, because that was absolutely crazy. It was top 13 covered by a few seconds until the last lap of the race. It was monumental racing and respectful as well. A little bit of door banging has been happening here and there in this series, but you come to expect that with a touring car. So it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and Friday Prime Time this season has been an absolute blast, and it was so good to bring it to all you guys. And I'm back on Friday Prime Time after my long absence.
Yes, you are. But if you didn't see that race at Road America, go onto the iRacing Esports Network YouTube channel and just scroll back and try and find the VOD, because that race was absolutely insane. You know, it's slow to get going, yes, but, you know, certainly worth it as if you went the full 30 minutes. But, you know, with this season done, of course, we have to go through that entire process again of trying to find another series to broadcast for the next season. And, of course, if this is the exact same time, exact same as how it's worked over the past, I don't know, 3 years at this point.
Yeah.
We'll have a post in the forums so that you guys can vote on which series gets us broadcasting it next season. And I just hope that we can make an exemption here for this and just like allow this to have a vote again.
Well, I mean, don't forget, it's not just on the forums as well. It's on social media that we'll have the vote there. For anyone who isn't an iRacing member, who doesn't have access to the forums, the vote is done on the RaceSpot TV website, but check out the RaceSpot social media, facebook.com/RaceSpot TV, and at RaceSpot on Twitter, or is it RaceSpot TV?
RaceSpot TV.
It's at RaceSpot TV on Twitter. So yeah, make sure you check them out. Get liking and following those if you want to keep up to date with with everything that's really going on with RaceSpot TV. And well, it's been cracking, and Friday prime time always seems to deliver here. So whatever you guys and girls choose to vote for next season, I'm sure it'll be absolutely epic.
I'm sure it will be as well, but that's going to be all that we have time for here for this race. And of course, this season, we are taking a week's break here on RaceSpot TV Friday prime time due to it being week 13 in iRacing, the big old update week where things get patched up, new content gets released, and we'll get to see some of that in action in about 2 weeks' time, perhaps. I've been Connery Maddock. That's been Paul Smith. Thank you very much to Istanbul for the track cameras as well, as they gave us some fantastic views of the action. And we'll see you guys for whatever you decide to pick for primetime next season.